We've been told that the first people who occupied America, the Native Americans, came here across the Bering Strait. But what if someone told you that when the Native Americans came across the Bering Strait, there were people already living here? These people had an established civilization that not only rivaled that of Egypt in its height, but is also much older. In fact, at the 1996 14th session of the United Nations Summer Conference, these people were recorded as the oldest indigenous people on Earth. In the next few minutes, we'll tell you about a very old and ancient people, the first Americans, the Washitaw de Mound.
Don't know who these people are? Kidding. The oldest civilization in the Americas, the Corral, Norte Chico civilization of Peru, has pyramids as old as that of Egypt, but while I am proud of their accomplishments, I would never be foolish enough to claim that their civilization was older or more advanced than Egypt. Egypt was in a Bronze Age stage while Corral was in a pre-ceramic stage, and Egypt had many technologies established that just were not known in the Corral region. In fact, it is this lack of technology that is proof that there never was contact between Corral and Egypt. Poverty Point, claimed by the Washitaw, isn't as old, was but a religious center for nomadic populations, and was pre-agrarian. Nor were the skulls found in any Poverty Point site any different than that of other Native Americans. Also, let me address the UN claim. The Washitaw wannabes were one of a multitude of groups who did presentations at the UN, in an open forum on indigenous rights. Them making a claim, and the UN accepting the claim, are two completely different things.
That an old and ancient people occupied this land before the American Indian, up until recently, not much effort has been made to educate the general public of this fact.
People ask, what are the Washitaw Moors? What's a Washitaw? What's a Moor? And understand, I am a Washitaw Moor. The Washitaw Moors have not gone anywhere. We've not disappeared. We're still here.
I find it humorous that these deluded souls would add Bey, which is a Turkish title, to their last names, claim to be Moors, which were Berbers, a North African population, yet go on to state that they are the original Native Americans and would claim to be the Washitaw, an extinct Caddoan native group. And the name de Mound? Who are they kidding? Listen carefully, de Mound, ya. Dug the Mound. That isn't even an indigenous language. It's bad English claiming they built the mounds. You wish that you had dug those mounds.
The Washitaw are the dark-skinned original inhabitants of North and South America. They have been referred to as the pre-Columbian civilizations, the prehistoric mound builders, the diggers, and the ancient ones. Certified legal documents of colonial and Spanish and French explorers identified the Washitaw as the ancient occupants of America.
Spanish documents do no such thing. In fact, there is no mention whatsoever of this tribe until the American colonies. The earliest mention of this tribe is in the 1600s, and they later disappeared as they merged with the Nakatosh.
The Mound Builders are the indigenous original inhabitants of North and South America. The Mound Builders did not exist in a vacuum at one time period. We have always been here.
Mound builder skulls were looked at early on in anthropology. Even with the racialist perceptions of the day, they still, at least, could tell if a skull resembled more skulls they had sampled in Europe, Africa, or Asia. They many times were incorrect in assuming the skulls were not Native American, but their conclusions as to what Old World populations had similarities were still clear. Mound builders were closer to Asiatic people in their skull shape. Not Africans with typical West African features like his. The mound builder were indeed indigenous Americans, but he is no mound builder.
Modern science teaches that all the continents on the earth were once connected in one piece of land. They call it Pangea. Washitaw history actually says the same thing as do the scriptures. The Washitaw, the indigenous people of this land that we now call America, were on this land when it was connected in one piece. When this land was connected to what is now called Africa, the Washitaw were on this land that we call America. So the Washitaw do not come from anywhere. We did not come to America from someplace else. We were already here. We have always been here. Back to the time when scientists called the land Pangea, when it was one piece. So we have always been on this land.
Pangea was the supercontinent that existed during the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras about 250 million years ago, before the component continents were separated into their current configuration. I state it again, 250 million years ago. Anatomically modern humans evolved from archaic Homo sapiens in the Middle Paleolithic, about 200,000 years ago. That is 249,800,000 years after Pangea ceased to exist. Yet, these deluded souls insist they were there. The first true mammals appeared in the late Triassic around 200 million years ago. That is still 50 million years after Pangea, but let us imagine they were there. Let me introduce you to the original Washitaw Moors. Or maybe they were Saurian Moors.
Poverty Point, located in Pioneer, Louisiana, near Monroe, is recognized as the second largest earthen pyramid in North America.
In a Western education world, Poverty Point has been identified as the oldest community in North America, in that Poverty Point was a complete city in construction.
City? More like thriving village and religious center. The Corral Supi culture in Peru predates Poverty Point, had farming and had larger constructions, but they were not earthen, but stone, so Poverty Point excels in its earthworks aspect. Here is some info from true experts on Poverty Point.
Over the last 50 years, archaeologists have explored and excavated numerous Louisiana earthwork sites. Located in the northeastern part of the state, the site at Poverty Point Plantation includes some of the largest American earthworks of the prehistoric period.
In the lower Mississippi Valley, there's a long history of earthwork development that may last probably 7,000 years, maybe 6,500 years. And of all places of the United States, this is the one area where the earthworks first came about.
A C-shaped figure dominates the center of the site. The figure is formed by 6 concentric artificial earth embankments. They're separated by ditches or swales where dirt was removed to build the ridges. The ends of the outermost ridge are 1,204 meters apart, nearly 3/4 of a mile. The ends of the interior embankment are 594 meters apart. If the ridges were straightened and laid end to end, they would comprise an embankment 12 kilometers, or 7½ miles in length. Originally, the ridges stood 4 to 6 feet high and 140 to 200 feet apart. Many years of plowing have reduced some to only 1 foot in height. Archaeologists suspect that the homes of 500 to 1,000 inhabitants were located on these ridges.
The Poverty Point earthworks were originally constructed around 1800 years BC, but we know that they were not the first earthworks built by Native Americans in Louisiana. For example, nearby to Poverty Point, a little bit southwest of Monroe, Louisiana, the Watson Break earthworks were constructed as early as 3,300 years BC.
Beautiful culture. But still pre-metallurgy and pre-stone architecture. They were indigenous Americans, not African-looking people. Respect.